Okay. Hi there. Hi,
Hi,
Lisa. Hi, Rich.
how you doing?
Good, yeah. So here we are at another East Rocks conversation. And each time we get together, Lisa, it feels like we're in a different version of normality with things changing with lockdown and things like that. So here we are today. And we have a guest, and it's Richard Simpson, and a member of the
Hi.
box. And I'll get him to introduce himself in a minute, but we're going to talk about the subject of routine. So just before we begin, I'm Ruth Coates, and I'm a psychotherapist based in East Lothian, and member of East Rocks.
Hi, and I'm Lisa, and I am a coach at Go Train East Rocks, and also have Super Being.
And I'm Richard Simpson. I'm a member at East Rocks, and I also own and run my own business, which is a digital agency called Taburn.
Great, thanks for joining us today, Rich.
No problem.
It's always great when we have a guest, isn't it?
I love having guests.
And
Even if it's me.
Yeah.
And we've had I'm really excited. We've had a really interesting preamble chat, haven't we, about what we're going to talk about today, and just that idea of routine. Just for me, it's not something that comes easy at all. So I'm kind of looking forward to some gems from this conversation. How about you, Lisa? What's routine like for you?
I mean, at the minute, I ebb and flow, but I have two things that I do that are very routine, which are I wash my face every single morning in freezing cold water, no matter what. And I pour myself a glass of ice cold water with ice cubes in it and lemon juice. That, without fail, happens every day.
Why do you do that?
The cold water is just a lovely awakening for my eyes and my skin, and it just gives me that little feedback. And the water with the lemon is just to wake up my system and get me started. So yeah, those are the two things I do always.
Just before we pass to Rich, actually, I'll tell you what I'm doing at the moment for routine, which is, I said I'm not very good at it, and I guess this is a real challenge for me. I'm doing something called a sadhana, which is 40 days of, it's a Kundalini yoga, kind of a Kriya practice. So it's going through different moves, or a set number of moves, Kundalini yoga moves every morning for 40 days. And I'm at day 10 with a group of women just holding the space. And it's every morning between 7 and 8:30. That's what I do. And I'm finding it a real challenge, amazing challenge in what comes up as well. So, that's the context I'm in just now.
Do you get up and go straight into that then? Or do you?
I actually get my lemon water as well, and I light a candle, and so there are little routines within the routine that I'm adding on. But we can chat a bit more about what that means maybe later on. But what about you, Rich? What's routine like for you, seeing as you suggested it?
It's a funny one, because it's one of these words which has possibly in some ways negative connotations, depending. So if you're quite a free spirit, for example, the idea of being stuck in a routine is it's a sort of homogenous hell. You're almost sort of controlled or being a slave to something. It's also, I guess, it's maybe often used to describe something that's a bit banal or a bit bland as well. So, when talking about routine, it's maybe something that gets, the positive associations with it maybe get overlooked. And I think for me, the kind of the context behind this theme and why routine has become more important for me really relates to everything that's happened over the last few months. So, I think I was probably a bit late to lockdown, or certainly working from home, compared to many others that I know, purely because the girls are at school in Edinburgh, so they were still at school, and so I was still driving them in. And on the basis that most people were working from home, I was still going in to drop them off. So I thought, well, I might as well go into the office. And there was a few of us in the office at that time. And so I guess when I think it was that week commencing the 15th or 16th. It's all a bit hazy now. But that week, pretty much everyone started drifting off to work at home and get set up. And then that weekend, obviously, we went officially into lockdown. And so for me, that sort of first day, and I don't know if it was the same for others. And again, you've got to be quite sensitive about this because I appreciate how hard it's been for many. But it sort of woke up to a bit, oh God, this is fun, right? We're at home and this is all, on a video call, and wow, this is all happening. And then really by the sort of towards the end of that week, I found myself almost having a bit of a kind of epiphany where I was sitting in my pants. I'm so sorry to share that horrible thought with you. And it's like middle of the day and I'm on the phone, having been on back-to-back video calls and phone calls with clients and colleagues, and I just felt literally all over the place. And I thought, right, this is not good. This has got to stop. I'm literally just firefighting, and like there's no personal hygiene. There's no standards. So I thought, right, I'm gonna make that change, and I guess from that point on, I then started, right, well, I'm gonna get up, because one thing that I'd always done with Lawson and Jude and Jamie and Louise and many others who were in the Clang and Bang sessions were get up at 5:30, and all of a sudden that was right out the window, and that you're getting later and later and later. So I started set my alarm for 6:30. And I get up and I had, start developing these quite specific rituals. So interesting what you say about the lemon water. Yeah. So there was another one. This is probably a reflection of reading, but I call it the wake and shake. So
what do you? This is going to do with your pants again?
No, nothing to do with pants. No. So I wake up. Victoria will be dying in the next room if she knows I'm talking about this. So I wake up, I feed the dogs, and then I do a minute shake. So
yeah.
So the idea is that it boosts your immune system, and it's a top-down movement.
Yes.
And it basically gets your metabolism going. It starts your immune system, and it sort of sets you up for the day.
It's really supportive to your nervous system. It helps you feel safe and connected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Well, it's just a sort of seemingly strange thing. And so, I've got a neighbour who's a farmer, and he's usually off, particular times of the year, to go and harvest or plough or whatever he's doing. And he's walked past the kitchen, and I'm standing in the kitchen doing this in my pants, and then a glass of lemon water, and then a cup of coffee, and then I sit down with my book, and a journal. So I do a bit of gratitude. A bit of kind of what was good about yesterday, a bit about what could improve, and then a little bit about what would make today good. And then the final part of it is this. So if you can see that, it's the Daily Stoic. And this is something actually I got into a wee while ago through actually a CrossFitter, a guy called Scott McGee, who's got the Sisu Way podcast. And he was on the Wadcast podcast originally, but then branched off to do this. And Sisu is like a Finnish word, which is like, it's big for Mikko Salo, the CrossFitter. And it's a Finnish concept. And in fact, there's a video about Mikko Salo called Sisu. And it's basically where passion and purpose collide to create an unstoppable sense of resilience. And
passion and what was that? Sorry, say that again.
It's where passion and purpose collide to create an unstoppable sense of resilience. So it's a word that actually can't be translated into English. But that's notionally what the concept of the philosophy means. And that also gave my sort of gateway into Stoicism, without sounding pretentious. So that, and then I do that, and then I go and work out, and then after the workout, which is maybe about sort of, I do that about 7:30 or something like that. I feel like I'm ready to start the day, and it's all about that kind of win the morning, set yourself up to win the morning, and then you win the day following that.
I love that phrase, win in the morning to win the day. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think it is really important about those routines. Well, maybe just personally speaking and hearing what you were saying as well, and a bit of what you were saying, Lisa, about your routine. It seems so important to do it in the morning, to frame the day with it. I wonder why.
Well, I think that's routine. You know, it's if you don't have that, you know, you open yourself up to, not being too dramatic, but chaos. You pass over a sort of sense of control to events that could happen to you. Now, if you're cool with that, then fine, that's great. But if you're not cool with that, because that chaos could be very positive, but it could also be quite negative. And the negative for me was finding myself in a state of undress, firefighting, you know, leaping from one crisis to the next, not actually doing anything particularly constructive, or I certainly wasn't feeling like I was doing anything constructive. And so I guess that order at the start of the day helps provide that sort of, it's probably a framework of control, which means that I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still stuff that can come in and blindside you and knock you off your routine. Tilly fell off her bike and broke her arm the other day, so we were into the sick kids for that. You know, that's life, that happens. But I think if you start as you mean to go on, which is typically what we do in the morning, you can set yourself up for success.
So with just because you've said it quite a few times, I just wondered if you might clarify a couple of wee things. So you did mention about being, you know, blindsided by other events that are out with your control, that sometimes step in and take and just I guess upset the order of the routine. That's one thing, and just how you deal with that. And the other thing is that you talk about control, and I suppose in the same frame of routine, that can be for a lot of people, ooh, I don't like it. But with the control, are you talking about it being very much within you, that you can control what you can control and not to sweat about the stuff that you can't?
Yes, 100%. So that control thing is quite interesting, because and again, this is where the sort of Stoic thing comes into play, and the Daily Stoic in particular. It's a page a day read that has a sort of a pithy headline, but then it's got a quote from one of the great Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, or Seneca, or something like that. Some of them, you know, being honest, you know, it's written in a classic style, so it's quite inaccessible. Some days it's quite hard to actually really understand what it means. But what the author Ryan Holiday's done is he's then translated that into a contemporary meaning. And I think what reading more about Stoicism, and there's a classic book, Epictetus, The Art of Living, which is in a similar format as well. And for someone that can find themselves getting bogged down in the trials and tribulations of running a business, as many of us can do, I've found that to be a very good way of helping me to get control of my emotions, because it's very easy to get drawn into conjecture and supposition about what others might be thinking or feeling. But unless you have the absolute facts and information, there's no point in worrying. And actually, you know, there's a great quote, there's a gap in information, people fill it with doubt. and that's very often the case. And so we can be at times predisposed to assuming the worst or thinking negatively about a situation. Actually, we don't have all the facts there.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that philosophy, that outlook, is a way of me getting control of those things that are going on inside my head. It's your consciousness running wild sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And then how do you deal when it's knocked off course?
Being a kind of off the scale extrovert, I usually have some sort of volcanic explosion in bad language and flap around the place. No, I mean, I've got a hell of a lot better than I used to be. But I think it's just about taking a breath and thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I mean, sometimes, it can be, it can be very serious, but I'm lucky in what I do that it's never a matter of life and death. Mm-hmm. We design websites, for God's sake, I mean, and it may seem like the most important thing to clients and to colleagues at the time, and that's great. And, absolutely, it's about, we want to create a place at work where people feel motivated and feel that they have a purpose to what they do. But at the end of the day, we're not frontline workers saving lives or first responders there in the heat of the moment. And actually, very often, it's just about taking a breath and thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then knowing that actually, I didn't choose this color of hair. I've actually acquired quite a lot of experience over the years, and you can find a way through it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question. There was the first part you said as well, which was about.
It's just about how you control it when you are derailed from your routine and how you manage that. But yet you've answered that, which I think is really important. And I like the way that you sort of, you talk about how the derailment, and I love how you've maybe fixed or tried to amend the initial reaction which was the volcanic thing, because it's that taking a breath and then realizing that circumstance is out with your control. So therefore, there's nothing that you could have done or can do right in this moment to make it different.
There's a great thing from Viktor Frankl about this, which is there's a gap between a situation, an event that happens, and your response, and that gap between these two things is where you make a choice over how it's going to affect you. And I mean, those words are so easy to say, but it's another thing to put it into practice when faced with a really, really challenging situation. And I think being an extrovert, everyone's different. You've got, different people respond to things in different ways. But as an extrovert, I know that I can react, and so it's just take a breath.
It made me, when you said that Viktor Frankl quote about that space in between, something that happens and you responding to it, and before as well, it made me think what you've been saying about meditation, about that, and when we think about that word meditation, we think about someone sitting in silence, but actually I think there are a lot of meditative things that we do that actually fit quite a lot into what we're saying today about routine and what it means, ritual, actually, you said as well. That made me think of it. And about, it kind of also made me think, God, meditation's really hard if we think of it like that. If we think about this kind of daily discipline of sitting in silence, that kind of classic view of it. But it doesn't have to be, does it? It doesn't have to, ritual doesn't have to be about what we're told meditation is. It can be our own practices.
Yes.
So my question is, what you're doing, and maybe Lisa as well, the things that you have chosen to do to begin your day, have they come from received ideas, or have you thought, that might be nice to do, I really need to do that? Has it come from inside, or has it come from, or maybe a bit of both? Rich,
it's come from, it's come from a variety of different places. I think, I mean, we all, well, generalize, but I think today most people consume a heck of a lot of content from different sources, and I know that yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of books, and online a lot, and so I've just picked up these things. So like the immune system boosting stuff, that's Dr. Ben Greenfield, and he's got a book, Beyond Training, and he's got a podcast, and he's got a regular blog. The whole Stoic thing came from Scott McGee, Cece Way. And in the journaling thing, I'm not actually sure where that came from exactly. I mean, I'm really interested in the stuff that you've been doing, Ruth, with writing. And it's true that there is again, forgive me if I'm sort of treating this too lightly, but there's a sort of cathartic thing about writing, that it feels a heck of a lot better when you get stuff out on the page. And so I think that's probably something that the idea to journal, as they say, or write a diary or something. You think about Dear Diary, it's a bit sort of Judy Blume, or Adrian Mole, but the idea of actually just taking a moment to reflect on the things that are important to you, and the things that are troubling you, and the things that you want to do to make yourself to make life better, or the things that you appreciate that you have. That's meditative, as you say.
Yeah.
And I think the way in which I've done it has probably come from within.
Yes. Okay.
That's probably a heck of a waffle. I'm sorry.
No, it made sense to me. No, I like that. The way that you've done it has been that directed from within, but your ideas have come out from out there.
Yes.
And other people maybe as well.
The inspiration from other people. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. And so with the stuff that you're doing, is that a meditative sorry, easy for me to say, a meditative approach, and with the writing.
The writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came from that, I suppose, and what we've been talking about, that kind of space in between something happening and us responding. So I guess it's reflective, which is maybe another word for meditative, on what we experience both with ourselves and with other people. So it came from, really, I mean, I love writing, but it came from me doing the morning pages, which is just journaling every day, which Julia Cameron wrote a book about decades ago called The Artist's Way, but I think the morning pages was happening way before her as well, but she called it the morning pages. And really it's for artists, but it's for anyone who wants to kind of unleash creativity and purpose in their lives. So I started doing that as much as I could every day, every morning. So you get up and that's what you do. You write 4 pages of anything that comes out. Kind of free writing.
Does it have to be 4?
No, but that was her kind of, I suppose that's the framework, that's the discipline, no less than. And then, so the book is really great. So there are different kind of prompts and things that she gives that you can start to use, but that kind of evolved into, what if we held a space for writing, a therapeutic writing? So it's interesting to hear about your journaling and that gratitude as well.
Because it's so easy. It's so easy to take stuff for granted. And I think that this is another point about the times that we are living in at the moment and what we've just come through. And, I do feel extraordinarily grateful for what we have, because I know for many it's been an absolute shit show. I mean, there's the threat to people's physical health off the back of the disease and the deaths and all that sort of stuff. But then there's the sort of the well-being piece about being cooped up and then actually now being let out again, and then the stress of being contained in a space with family and work pressures, and then all the pressures with work. And so you sort of look at all that, and it can be horrendous for some, but again, personally speaking, and I feel almost guilty about it, but I've enjoyed this time. It's been a hugely valuable time for us as a family. And I think taking the time in the morning to recognize that and to go, Jesus, the fact I can get out of bed in the morning and I can move freely, like when I'm 85 and, well, if I get to that point, of course, and you're sort of hobbling around, and then imagine if you woke up one morning, right, when you were 85 and you had the body of a 30-year-old again. Like, what would you do? You'd be running around going nuts outside, wouldn't you? You'd be like, woohoo, and so there is something that, particularly being a CrossFitter, you wake up in the morning, ow, I'm sore, but actually I feel incredibly lucky to be sore because I've been lucky enough to be fit enough to be able to pick up a heavy weight or run a distance or do that sort of stuff. And so these are all the things that you can take for granted, as well as, the fact that we live in a beautiful house in the middle of nowhere, and we all generally in our house like each other. So it's sort of it's important just to take that time to recognize it.
So would you say, Rich, that during this period, not only have you cultivated some lovely rituals to help your mind, thought, and conscious being, but how has it helped you in a practical level? So with family and work, what sort of, I guess, maybe changes has that helped you trust to change and feel confident to do it because you've had the time to do it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the starting point is the lack of commute. So I figured this out, and I, again, this is the other thing. This is the banal bit of a routine. You can find yourself in a routine unconsciously. And I think prior to this, my unconscious routine was to get up, to go to East Rocks, clang and bang, come back, pick up the girls, chuck a sandwich, chuck a whatever I could, a bit of toast in my mouth, drop them off at school, come in, shower at work, flap about the place, sit at my desk, get there, like that. I mean, that's not a routine. That's not healthy. And actually, when you factor in all that kind of toing and froing from here to East Rocks to Edinburgh to West Edinburgh where the girls are, to Southside where I work, it's 2.5 hours round trip. On a bad day, it's 3. And all of a sudden that time's now back with me.
Yeah.
And then I think there's another piece in that as well, which is working from home. And don't get me wrong, I mean, working from home is a good thing, but it, as with anything, there's pros and cons. The opportunity to collaborate and to socialize with colleagues has gone for now. And that's something we desperately want back in our business. But from a productivity standpoint, if you work in a task-orientated role or you have a number of tasks that you need to fulfill, well, I mean, productivity is sort of through the roof. And so actually the benefit of being able to get through stuff quicker generally and to not have that time sitting in the car. And okay, I try and use that as best I can by listening to Audible or listening to a podcast or something. So there's a bit of self-development or a bit of, relaxation going on in there. But it's not the same. So that I've been able to look at that in other ways. So spending more time together as a family, being a bit more considered and purposeful with my training, doing some mobility, which Suzanne will be pleased to hear. Just thinking about other things outside of Tabor and my business, and doing them. Hence the sort of the philosophy bit, the reading bit.
Is it ever difficult?
What's that?
Routine. Because it made, talking about is it, the discipline of it, and you were talking about Stoic philosophy as well, like. Yeah. Well, like as someone who likes a bit of a laugh, like Stoics aren't renowned for their sense of humor. So there's times it's a bit worthy,
and there's times that you wake up in the morning and you think, I really can't be arsed. I want to just roll over and go back to sleep. But I think on a weekday specifically, if you give in, well, my view, and this is just my view, if you give in to that, you're not necessarily setting yourself up for success. It doesn't mean you can still have a good day. You can still things can still happen that make it a good day. But I think you stand a better chance. And it's a bit like it's a bit like working out. You know, you may not feel like it, but you never regret it afterwards. You know, you know that sort of that February, that cold February, or actually January, just after Christmas. That sort of Monday, you've eaten and drunk yourself silly for 2 weeks, and you're going to go down and train outside in horizontal weight in the pitch black. And it's you know, just the thought of it is like, oh my, but you never regret it, and you love it afterwards. And I think that's the thing. Yeah. So it's a bit of discipline, and I think, because I think the other thing too is as well, this is the dichotomy of it. For all that control and that constraint, actually ultimately it delivers a sort of a sense of freedom, because it gives you a bit of purpose.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on it just a wee bit back when you said about this routine is a conscious routine. It's one you have chosen. And I really love that, because I think that's maybe how people identify with routine is, oh my God, you know, I get in the car, I do this, I go to work, then I get a shower, and then I have to go here, and then I drive there, and then I get to work, and then I'm at my desk, blah, blah, blah. And that's maybe how a lot of people view routine. But what's lovely about your routine or ritual is that you've chosen it. It's yours.
Yeah. Yes.
You want it.
Cultivated it. And I think, and I am actually wondering whether ritual is the word for a cultivated routine, or one with awareness.
Yeah.
Something that you build in.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. I know it seems like semantics, but it's actually really quite important, because a ritual has such a much more positive, there's much greater emotional benefit to a ritual than there is maybe with a routine, which is a bit more banal or a bit more forced.
Yeah. Ritual does sound, you know, as well as it being a giving thing, because you ultimately are probably a better human being for giving yourself the ritualistic care that you need. So you then are able to give more of you as a result. Yeah.
And that in itself is an interesting one, actually, because there is a bit of self-reflection that goes on with this stuff as well. And I think it's coming to realize like who you are. And you know, there's a tendency, again, and I'm generalizing, in people to focus on what they are and be troubled by what they're not. And actually, if you can make friends with, you know, the things that you're not, and be comfortable with that, that's a good thing. And I think, again, throughout this sort of process, or this time that we're in, you know, come to realize actually there's some good stuff, but there's some bad stuff. Well, it's stuff that is who I am, and there is a bit of selfishness in there, or if selfish is maybe too strong a word, it's egocentricity. You know, and someone like Victoria, I mean, she's a very, very giving person, and you know, we talk about it quite a lot, probably to a fault. And so her default position is always around other people, and you know, she looks forward to things that other people are looking forward to, or things that are going to make them better. Whereas for me, I'm looking forward to stuff that I want to do. And it's been a bit of a time to sort of reflect on that, and be okay with that, and know that's what it is, but then also know that when it's a bad thing, that actually that's when you've got to step in and say, right, you've been a bit selfish here.
Yeah, and that's so. I was thinking earlier about the discipline of it as well. That actually it's a moving picture, isn't it? It's not that we find a routine and we stick with it no matter what. It's actually sometimes it maybe doesn't fit in our other commitments, but also because for the sadhana that I'm doing, this daily practice of this space, this morning space, mainly for yoga, but it can be for anything, any kind of practice that you like, is that what I'm learning is that I don't need to do it every day. So out of 10, I've not done it once. Like, it was one day where I just really didn't feel like it, didn't want to get up, so I didn't. And I know that may be like the opposite of what we've been talking about, which is you do it and you end up feeling great anyway.
Yeah.
But actually, especially when you're starting to get used to a new ritual or routine, I think it's important to go quite gently and not give yourself a thrashing if you miss a day, or but just notice. And there was something actually really self-supportive about not doing it that day.
Yes.
So it's a moving picture.
And sometimes, like, I'm just looking out the window and it's absolutely tipping it down. It's the middle of July, and the weather is minging. and so the point is, I guess, if it's a really nice day and you want to be outside, and the ritual that you've committed to dictates that you need to be in doing stuff, and actually it's not a bad thing to say, well, actually maybe today's not the day. I'm going to go out and I'm going to enjoy this glorious weather, because otherwise that's when, and that's probably the difference between routine. Like, if a routine is forcing you into a pattern of behavior that is not universally good, it maybe needs a bit of flex to it.
Well, it's that whole letting go and holding on, isn't it? It's that lovely kind of, it's like the tide, it ebbs and it flows. And I think we have to go with that, because there will be days, times, minutes, hours where we're not our best selves. And as you talked about that wee bit earlier, Richard, about, finding out about the human that you are, that we all have a shadow side that we don't particularly love, but I think it's really important to see it, understand it, accept it, and work on it, but love every aspect of who we are, because we're always going to be made up of light and dark and gray and all the shades. But I think it's that too. It's just not been too hard on ourselves for doing things that that we kind of think, oh God, or or maybe thinking a certain way, or having a realization, crikey, that's me, I do that. It's okay, I do that. Oh my God, I've done that again. How much worse would it be if you weren't able to ever get the opportunity to see that, to have that glimpse of that shadow and never know it? So it's good.
There's a lot of self-knowledge in it, I think. About if you can see those opportunities where you maybe don't, that ego side, that darker side, the shadow side, if you can see that as an opportunity to learn about yourself and maybe tweak something rather than something to send you back, or send you into kind of negativity, well, that would be great, wouldn't it? But that's a practice.
And that's practice. But what also there's another lovely knock-on effect to that by us as individuals noticing and being able to see it, is that then we're a little bit more understanding and totally appreciate it when we see it in others.
We do, don't we?
We're much more understanding, empathetic, much more forgiving, and I think understanding. We just sort of say, well, you know what, I've been there. I've been there. I've reacted like that, or I've said that, or and then be just really be very just gentle with someone who's maybe not in a good space, rather than reacting. Anyway, that is also a practice. Oh dear.
I'm seeing, like, as a routine then, just to kind of, I think we've probably just got a few minutes maybe to tie up some loose ends if we have any, as I'm seeing routine as an investment in the future, in our kind of personal future, but also that it has kind of tendrils out into our lives, people that we love and share our lives with. So how do you see this as translating over to East Rocks members and whatever routine that offers?
Well, it's a great question, and I mean, I think for me, a whole heap of this started with what CrossFit was to me initially from the early days. So I remember when I walked into MTS as was, and I thought I was fit because I'd run a marathon. I was actually about 17 and a half stone, and drinking every night and out for dinner all the time, and just not in a good healthy spot. And what it did was sort of, well, it sort of set me off on a sort of a fitness, a fitness journey. Sorry to use the word journey, but I mean that's exactly what it was. And as I think I started to learn more about the sport and then broader aspects of health and well-being across mind, body, and spirit. It all stemmed back to, well, actually, there's an approach here, and I think it's like working on the expression working on your weaknesses. And so everyone's got strengths, everyone's got natural strengths, or everyone has then discovered stuff that they enjoy applying and have got good at. But then there's the weaknesses, and it's, it could be gymnastics for some, it could be confidence to pick up something a bit heavier. You've got the mechanics in place, and actually you can move pretty consistently, but there's just a little bit of confidence lacking that makes you stick an extra 5 kilos or 10 kilos in the bar. And I suppose, so this is a very long-winded way of saying that I think it's just with a sort of a bit of discipline around routine and practice, you can work on these weaknesses and become better overall. And also it can open your mind to the fact that this isn't necessarily just about physical well-being. In terms of fitness, there's nutrition, which obviously Lisa's a huge advocate of. There's the whole mindful well-being piece that you promote, Ruth, as well. And I think the great thing about, well, what started off as CrossFit for me, but has now become East Rocks and general functional fitness, is the open-mindedness to try new things, to try and be a better version of yourself. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a bit of barefoot running, or it's a bit of, I don't know, a plant-based diet, or it's practicing some yoga, or getting involved in something that's maybe even more out there. It's just good stuff. So how do I summarize that? So just put in place the rituals and the discipline to work on weaknesses, and to sort of open your mind to trying new things that can make you better in the long run.
Fantastic. How about you, Lisa? What do you think about the beauty of routine, or what the box can offer at East Rocks?
Oh goodness, many things, I think, in terms of what I do and where I work. And I think East Rocks offers, as Rich touched on, so much more than just coming down and training. So much more. It's a real live, actual place for people to connect, for people to fill up, for people to get strong, for people to move, for people to, God, just have something of their own. I think what's beautiful about East Rocks is hugely ritualistic, is tripping down that hill.
Yes.
Isn't it going to be emotional when we can all do that again?
I'm going to be bawling my eyes out when I'm doing that. I promise you. Oh so my God. I was welling up when the post came out the other day. Honestly.
It's
hill.
it's a wonderful, wonderful, multifaceted thing that I think as well that, you know, if you're used to going along with an unconscious routine, you maybe don't realize the worth and the feedback and the genuine benefit that it is. But I reckon that if you did take a wee bit of time, and I think this time has been really thought-provoking for everybody, because I think what they've realized now is like, crikey, that was a big part of my health and my wealth in terms of the person that I am. I think that having now not been able to access it, it's not available to me in the way that I want it to be, i.e. the physicality of walking down the hill and seeing people and being in the woods, that is not available to me just now. That's what they're really seeing, what they're missing, and all the little bits, whether it's the people, whether it's nothing to do with the exercise, maybe it's just connection, maybe the exercise is a byproduct of what they get or why they're there.
I think it's I've just got like epiphanies bursting all over the place listening to you both talking about that, because I think it's about, routine, ritual is about building strength, isn't it? And we can talk about that in a kind of fitness, you know, you keep going at something, keep practicing it, you're building strength. But actually we're talking about about mental strength, spiritual strength. And I love that actually we've been talking maybe a little bit more focused on our personal individual routines that we're looking at, but for East Rocks, or kind of, well, East Rocks, it's about sharing routine, and there's something really connective in that, isn't there? Really powerful in there.
Collective ritual.
Yeah, church.
Yeah. Very much so, with the most beautiful souls in the congregation who are all there because we have some kind of connection, whatever it is. That's exactly it. And there's no one preacher, because we're all learning from everybody.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. Can I share this quote that came out of Richard's book, which I think is hugely apt? I know we don't have any olive trees down at the box, but get this. So, pass through this brief patch of time in harmony with nature and come to your final resting place gracefully, just as a ripened olive might drop, praising the earth that nourished it and grateful to the tree that gave it growth.
Oh.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Nice.
That made it into your book, didn't it?
That made it into the book, yeah.
That's lovely.
I loved it. You know, sometimes you're reading through stuff and then all of a sudden it just hugs you.
Yeah.
Jumps out of the book and goes, oh! That was what that did. I loved it. So beautiful.
Maybe you could write that in the comments when we share the video. And I was wondering as well if you could, Rich, if you could, that video, Mika Salo, and was it?
Yes.
Sisu?
Sisu, yeah. Sisu. So the Miko Salo one is it's a rogue video.
Okay.
But it's just a great story.
Fantastic.
And the Sisu Way with Scott McGee is just a brilliant podcast.
Fantastic.
So I'll make a wee note of all these things.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. So maybe when this goes out on the page, Rich, you could maybe pop those links underneath.
I'll put the links in. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's been a fantastic conversation. I think the epiphany is going to keep coming.
Oh, amazing. You've been the best guest. So thanks so much.
Yeah, the only guest.
Rich.
No, the best guest. It's been wonderful.
Oh, bless you both. No, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. What a wonderful way to round off the week.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on and joining us.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. It's lovely to see you.
We'll be back again for another conversation. All right. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Bye. See you soon.
later.
Bye.
Yeah.